office, quite honestly, you had suggested there's ways we can help clean up that neighborhood. And this is kind of where it all came together, is we thought we'd proactively arrange this coordinated approach. So we had bulk trash for 3 days leading up. Saturday, we went out, and I do want to mention Adam Johnson is also here. He's our, thanks to you and some of the funding we've done, our community engagement coordinator. He worked with Daniel and the Public Works team of engagement specialists there to have a Saturday presence. So they got, Public Works brought out a tire truck, which I heard just filled up instantaneously. So that tells you there's a lot of tire needs in that neighborhood. And we already had some intel on that from what they see, inert material. So they knew it would be a lot to take up during bulk trash, so we said, let's come on the heels of that. Let's do a heavy campaign. Adam and Daniel flyered their neighborhood. They did some knock and talks. They educated them, hey, you have an upcoming bulk trash. We want to connect you to all the services. We have small tools. We have any number of things that we gave them information-wise. And by the way, we'll be Saturday at Varney Park. We're going to have a place where you can, if you get stuff either to your curb, Public Works staff with their little Kubotas are going to come by and pick it up and haul it away, any inert materials. We have a tire bin, and then we gave them a goodie bag for those who came through and did a drive-through right there at the Varney Park. So it was safely distant, everybody was masked, and heavy on the education and outreach up front. And what I heard, unfortunately I wasn't able to be there, I got called out of town, but tremendous results from heavily use of our services. I haven't heard yet how well the bulk trash went compared to what showed up on Saturday, but you know, we're all victim to, I missed that opportunity. You know, bulk trash was in the middle of the week, and I work, and I wasn't able to get the stuff out there. So does that help answer the question you were asking?
Appreciated it. Two of my dilemmas always have been, what do you do with tires? And what do you do with concrete? They get fined if it's visible, and yet do you just eat it? Because there's no way that we recycle that. So you did a special outreach for those, and the tire truck was full, not so much the concrete. I also wanted to mention that you held hands with the Friends of the Peoria Public Library. They put a book in a new book in each one of the goodie bags. And Sefton was there on Saturday. I don't know for sure which part he played, if he put seeds in the packets or what, but thanks to his group. And really just thanks to all of you. It's tremendous, tremendous outreach, and a really good example of what can be done in problem neighborhoods, which Danette and I have mostly non-HOA neighborhoods. So thank you tremendously.
Yes, we really believe Proactive is going to have a big impact on our ability to have successful outcomes. And what we're creating, even though we have a three-pronged engagement approach within this system, we have a three-pronged approach. It's a city manager support and advisory on how we want to engage these. And a lot of these are going to be case by case, project by project, cases or department initiatives. So we need the departments, and we're going to have a robust training program across all these departments on, they're going to be the subject matter expert. They already know they have to do resurfacing, or they have to do bulk trash, or they're the subject matter expert. What we want to do is pair them up with the Office of Communications so we can take their content and, you know, have the city Office of Communication check it for public information and make sure it's done in a professional manner. And then we're also going to run it by our department, who kind of speaks the neighborhood language, to make sure we're not talking above their head. So when it's a project that's either one of our partners out there or another agency, that's where we're working with our departments to have kind of this engagement interaction. I talked earlier about if I'm at the counter taking a permit for a utility to go tear up the road to do something, their customer across the counter right then is the utility company, but all the customers behind them are all the residents that are going to be impacted by that permit. And we need to connect those. We can't just, here's your permit, you know, and that's that silo tunnel vision. We want to use this to build that culture of, ooh, I have a neighborhood impact. We're going to develop these Peoria Pro teams. These are going to be proactive professionals from the departments of OC, the line department, our department. It could be the utility company or the contractor, whoever is going to be impacting that neighborhood. So we have a proactive plan to notification, It gets back to what Mr. Strunk says, what level are we going to engage that neighborhood? Are we informing them? Are we consulting them, involving them? To what extent? But there's going to be a minimum, and what we want to do is the Peoria way. Mayor, you talked about it earlier, and the other, it's not just checking the minimum box. Yeah, we mailed something out. Well, does that mean we made a connection? Do we want to step it up, even if it's not our project? Hey, by the way, this utility company is going to come out and do this. Traffic's going to be impacted. Here's all the information you need. If you're not being satisfied, contact us. This is where Adam and Daniel are going to be those closed conduits to the neighborhoods, especially those non-HOA neighborhoods who lack the capacity. And that may mean we want to do flyering and knock and talks over and above it to make sure the message is received. And it gives them access to all the resources to have a better outcome. And in each of these, we're going to work as a team to make sure there's proper communication to your level, city management, department, and community on the success. And we can set up our own levels of success. What does that look like? And a lot of these will be subjective. You'll know, hey, I need to make sure this neighbor is in the loop, or this block is most impacted, just keep them up on, or we'll have those kind of subjective and objective metrics that we want to have in place for what success and failure looks like. And then the last one really depends on how well we do the relationship building and the proactive. We hope to minimize a reactive, but the reactive, we want to kind of have the emergency preparedness approach. We've got to be ready for things are going to happen, as Mr. Strunk said earlier. We're going to do our best to avoid them, but every now and then they are going to come up, and we want to make sure it's given the appropriate attention when it does. And that's going to mean putting this together, a response level team to deal with those. And it's going to be either at the resident level or at the block level, or it could be at the neighborhood level. How are we going to react and show that, hey, we had a little mishap here, but we're on it. It's all boots on the ground. We have a multi-department approach. All resources are going to be dedicated to correct this and get back to and maintain the superior and high level of customer service that they come to expect. It'll include heavy information at all levels of the government with your offices, as well as the city manager's office and the departments that are impacted. And one of the biggest things is going to be that last bullet on the right, reevaluate and adjust. This is a feedback loop that we see. What lessons have we learned? Why did this come up? Did we miss an opportunity to be proactive? Did we miss an opportunity with the existing relationship? We should have known better that this was a pet peeve of theirs, lighting in their neighborhood or traffic mitigation when there's a project. So we use that to continue to update our CRM, again, at the resident level, neighborhood level, any number of information that can be maintained and documented through that for a better result the next time through. And before I hand it back over to Mr. Strunk, I just wanted to, here's that three-prong approach, and the better we do the relationship building and the proactive and a really highly responsive reactive through these communication efforts, that directly correlates to the trust that we're going to build with them. Every reaction we do in a proper and expected format is going to help our relationship with them. Every proactive opportunity that a project or department is going to bring in with a neighbor who we don't have a relationship gives us an opportunity to develop that relationship, put them in our database, maintain and nurture that relationship.
Thank you, Chris. Mayor and Council, to kind of conclude the presentation, this is something I've had conversation with the executive team, and we're committed to seeing these principles play out in this organization. We do place a high value on citizen engagements, and we understand there's a training component to this, and there's some organizational pieces we need to put into play, but we're committed to this. We've done a good job. We want to do an even better job of this. So there's a couple key things we'll be focusing in on here. What we shared with you is kind of over the next couple years, and if you really want to see the gory details, it's in the report, and I'll spare you that. But we've got a good strategy laid out. We want to connect internally, so that team that we talked about, kind of a governance team, if you will, out of the city manager's office will be created. We are going to identify and confirm our liaisons within the city departments, and the training component. We know we have to place the value on community engagement, as Mr. Hallett mentioned. The other piece too, and the Vice Mayor mentioned this, and it's all on our brain, is the external entities, the outside utilities. Yep, we want to have separate engagement with them, and we want to coalesce and meet with them on a regular basis. We're going to share stories, we're going to swap experiences, and we're going to talk about techniques. And that will only further to enrich what we do, but also bring an awareness to them about how important this is in the city of Peoria. We don't want to see the unplanned occur. It will, and we want to make sure that we're smart about how we approach that when it does. Lastly, and Mr. Hallett mentioned it, this is your world to a certain extent, and we understand that. We have value, and we appreciate that. So you can look forward to heavy communication with your staff on this very topic, and it's the first step of a journey that we're starting out here. But we wanted to share this with you, and we'd like to kind of conclude it with the typical, do you have any questions, comments, observations that you'd like to share with us?
Well, I do have a comment. A number of years ago, when we first hired our sitting city manager, he told us that he wanted to manage a city, build a city from the point of neighborhoods. And that is something that cities don't always do. You know, like with water, you tend to look 20 years out and you tend to think of the big picture and the infrastructure that's going to be necessary for that in the long term. But talking about it from the point of view of people who live in these neighborhoods and the community pride and changing the culture within our city to think about it from that point of view is happening, and it's happening successfully. And so I'd like to thank you for putting this in place, and I would like to thank our city manager for deciding that that's the way we wanted our city to be managed, from the smallest point of view, the point of view of every single resident that lives here. So I think we're off to a great start, and it's pretty crazy how you can take all of those technical aspects and make them into something very personal. And so I appreciate your expertise, and I'm looking forward to the way our city is going to be, the culture of our city and our employees and our residents as we grow. It's very exciting. It's great. I'm very pleased. So thank you. All right, Mr. Tyne, anything else?
No, thank you for your comments and feedback, and more to come on that. That is all we have for our study sessions.
All right, then we are adjourned until our 6 o'clock meeting. This meeting will now come to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mayor Bartlett,
Here.
Vice Mayor Edwards,
Here.
Councilmember Finn,
Here.
Councilmember Binswanger,
Here.
Councilmember Patena,
Here.
Councilmember Dunn,
Here.
and Councilmember Hunt.
Good evening and welcome to the Peoria City Council special meeting of March 16th, 2021. We have one item on our study session agenda this evening, and that is Public Works Department update. And I will turn it over to City Manager Jeff Tide to begin.
Great, thank you, Mayor and Council. As part of our continuing budget discussions here this spring, we wanted to bring to you the department that is responsible for so many of the different critical functions here at the city. For those of us that drive on our streets and utilize our solid waste service, for our entire city staff that utilizes our fleet and facilities, all comes out of this one department and has such important roles. And we're very fortunate that we have such great leadership to help support and present their budget discussions and some of their policy discussions that they see in the upcoming year. So with us today, you can see we have our power dressing director, Kevin Burke, who can present his staff. I'll pass it over to Kevin.
Thank you, City Manager Tyne. I appreciate that introduction. Welcome to Public Works Night at the Council Chamber. We're very excited to hit you with a whirlwind of tantalizing Public Works tidbits, and so we'll jump right into it. I got to remember that I'm in charge of advancing the slides, so we'll do that. All right, so our agenda, we'll just hit you with an overview of the department, talk a little bit about trends that are emerging in 2021, dive a little deeper on the pavement management and want to talk about new fleet facilities. So we'll spend a little time there, but then just touch in solid waste facilities and transit and hit some of those trends and wrap it up with some department goals. So as you may recall, there are 5 divisions within the Public Works Department. We have streets and fleets, trash and transit, and facilities. And they are run by a dynamic team of some really outstanding individuals here. I've got a couple of them joining me tonight, but Kyle Kobashigawa is our facilities manager. He's not here this evening, but John Fruden is our fleet manager. He'll be talking a little bit about the maintenance facility. Aaron Waste runs our solid waste division. And then Janet Ramsey, also here tonight, our dynamic manager for streets. And Kathy Colbath, who you've seen on a number of occasions, talking transit. And then finally, filling in and cleaning up all of our other departments and representing them all is Veranda Humbles, our Deputy Public Works Director. So looking forward to each of them presenting. So collectively, Public Works has a budget of just short of $51 million. So pretty sizable budget with another $12 million in capital improvements that come before you. You'll notice the pie chart on the right's a little different than you see in a lot of other departments, in that the personnel slice of the pie is less than a third. A lot of times in government departments, that personnel takes up 2/3, if not 80% of the pie. For Public Works, our biggest slice is really the contractual services. And contractual services are those things such as landfill fees. They can be utilities that we're paying for each building. They can be building repair and maintenance, such as a hot water heater or a chiller or an electric panel. So those things definitely add up to some pretty sizable dollar amounts. The other big piece is our service charges to other funds. And that's really because we are a different dynamic in that we have 3 enterprise funds, 2 special revenue funds, and 3 internal service funds. So it's a little bit different how our department operates. Moving forward, as far as trends, there's 5 particular trends I wanted to call your attention to. Labor issues, some recycling, commodity markets, traffic signals, COVID in facilities, and really our resurgence in transit that we're expecting in 2021. I'm going to hit just the labor shortage real quick, and the other items will be covered by the presentations by my colleagues here at the desk. As far as a labor shortage, it may feel, or the state rate may show 7.8% unemployment, but in the public works environment, it feels like full employment. We are having a great challenge finding and retaining people, particularly those who have commercial driver's license. As you know, most of our jobs, whether you're driving a trash truck, driving a bus, driving a street sweeper, you're a mechanic that's got to drive all of them, you need a commercial driver's license. We've all heard about supply chain dynamics in this economy. Well, they hit it home when you're looking at commercial driver's license. So while it's not a crisis, it's definitely one where it's getting harder and harder to attract and fill vacancies. And so that has an impact on our operations that we just need to keep an eye out. So with that, I am going to turn this over to Janet Ramsey to talk about some of the great street operations that are coming forward.
All right. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Just about 3 years ago, we presented an overview of our pavement management program, the principle of which is emphasis on pavement preservation for our good and better roads, thereby deferring the more expensive rehabilitation and reconstruction projects for as long as possible. In that way, we get the greatest benefit and best value over the life cycle of our $1.2 billion pavement network. In order to select projects that help us meet our goals, we employ a third-party contractor to complete a technical condition survey of every Peoria road every 3 years. In late 2017, the results of that first survey provided an aggregated score of 72 out of 100 for our overall pavement network. That's good. The national average at the time was about 65, and of course, we're well above that. In 2018, however, you supported a significant increase in our budget as we officially launched our pavement management program. In the next 3 years, we completed nearly 190 miles of pavement projects. In fiscal years 18 through 20, highlights included Bell Road, Union Hills, sections of 79th Avenue, 91st Avenue, 107th Avenue, Butler Drive, Beardsley Road, and numerous residential rehabilitation and preservation projects all around the city. After all that work, the most recent survey results indicate that our new citywide PCI is 77, nearly 78. So great improvement there. And with that, the breakdown of the percentage of our citywide network looks like this. That's a lot of green, and green is good, and traffic signals, beer tomorrow night, and in this case, pie charts. But if you happen to be one of those few folks whose home sits facing one of the red or yellow streets, you probably want to know what we're going to be doing about that. In the next phase of our pavement management program, we plan to attack as many of those red and yellow areas as possible and bring them into the green pavement preservation category. In completing the next several years of planned projects, we predict that our citywide pavement condition index will continue on the upward trajectory, reaching about 79 to 80 by FY25. The projects that will help us accomplish that are illustrated by these maps, and Mayor and Council, we've provided those on your desk there, so I'm quite strained to see this. I understand it's pretty small, but the first map indicates the fiscal year 21 projects that are currently complete or already underway to be completed by June 30. Highlights include Deer Valley, Peoria Avenue, and of course the recently completed Lake Pleasant Parkway cutting through the entire center of town. The second map indicates projects that we've selected for fiscal years 22 through 25. Highlights of that work include 75th Avenue, Cactus, Thunderbird, and Joe Max, to name a few, as well as, again, a number of residential rehabilitation and reconstruction projects. Based upon our pavement management program with its emphasis on pavement preservation, the pavement management team was selected for the 2021 Excellence in Pavement Preservation Award presented by the International Slurry Surfacing Association, which is a nationwide organization and a primary provider of training and education, as well as the professional credentialing of our team. Ordinarily, this award would have been presented at a national convention in Nevada, but COVID, so they mailed the plaque to us. But we are very proud of the recognition and the collaborative effort that it represents among all of those with whom we need to share this award, including development and engineering, especially traffic engineering, the Office of Communication for their assistance in spreading the word about our projects through social and other media, the police department for their assistance in on-site traffic control, materials management and budget for helping us with procurement and finding all the coins and the couch cushions and ashtrays to fund our project, and within the streets division, our entire group, including pavement maintenance, signs and striping, signals, and sweeping. Of course, We owe many thanks to our leadership and management, including Rhonda, Kevin, Eric, Jeff, and you, Mayor and Council, for your show of faith in our work and investment in our program. We thank you. As I mentioned, many have joined in this group effort, but the core pavement management team is comprised of Mike Jones, Jaime Padron, Kelly Lehner, Jessica Buckner, Victor Avina, Josh Bay, and Gilbert Romero, a group of the most dedicated individuals I've ever had the honor to work with. And before we move on from streets, we can't forget those who work more above the street than on it. There's a very busy team in the Streets Division that usually works above our sight line and tends to go unnoticed as our signals turn from red to green. As long as I do that, we don't pay a lot of attention. But this small team is responsible for ensuring that once signals are constructed, they continue to do that red, yellow, green thing. As you might imagine, the technology behind traffic signal operations has changed dramatically in the past few years, and to keep on top of all that, the training needs of this team are great. They currently manage 130 signalized intersections and 17,000 streetlights, in addition to the ever-changing signals technology. They implement our pole replacement and infill program, signal cabinet renovations and upgrades, and recently a pilot project for smart streetlight technology. They review plans and help oversee new installations and construction. When all that is planned, we requested a new lead signal specialist to help meet the needs of the growing city and continue to do that green, yellow, red thing. And with that, I would take any questions if you have.
Thank you. Councilor, do you have any questions? Oh, okay. Councilmember Patena, and then Councilmember Hunt.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Janet, for this map. I see a lot of colors, blue, red, green, and purple that go all the way out to 2025. I also see a lot of gray areas where nothing is being touched. Is there ever anything that would cause you to divert from this map as you have it scheduled to take care of roads that don't have any color on them?
Yes, sir, absolutely. We do have one other survey that would be coming in 3 years. And so that may change. There are things that can change along the way. Of course, it's budget contingent, so assuming that we're still in the same financial condition that we're in right now. And of course, those surveys and the results of that, sometimes there are changing conditions that we can't predict in the roads as well. So there can be something fairly traumatic that happens. Another thing that happens quite often is that we work hard to coordinate with the others that are doing work, especially development and engineering. So if there's something new coming in the area, we might jump ahead to try to either get into that area before or postpone that area until after the project. So we're always working collaboratively with all the groups across the board to make sure that we're doing the best with the dollars that we have.
Thank you. And my second question is, you mentioned that we have a PCI score of 77.
Yes, sir.
What's the national average?
It's 67 at this time.
67.
Yes, sir.
Look, I know this is a great city, but what makes us 10 points higher than the average city in around the country?
Well, I have to say that's all of you and your investment in the city. We're willing to do whatever you allow us to do, and that's a great statement on behalf of the council and the management of the city, the leadership, so we appreciate that.
That's quite a score. Nice job. Thank you.
you.
That's all I have.
Councilmember Hunt.
This is simple, Janet. What are hawks? I see 2 hawks are planned.
That's the pedestrian signals that are specifically set up near the schools, so those that you see like on Peoria Avenue and out by Liberty High School. And yes, ma'am, and they have primarily the same functions as a traffic signal, so that takes as much of our operators' time as it does a traffic signal in many cases.
Really a safe crossing device.
Yes.
That's why they're at schools. Thank you. I just never had heard them called
Oh,
that.
yes.
Anyone else?
All right. Well, if we have just a few more minutes, so let me squeeze in a little bit more if I can, Madam Mayor. I'm going to turn to John Fruden, our street fleet manager, to talk a little bit about the new fleet facility that we're exploring.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you for time for a very brief overview of the Fleet Shop project. There are primarily 3 drivers for the need of the replacement of the facility. They are growth, the condition of the facility as it is approaching 34 years of age, and future integration of such things as electric vehicles. That infrastructure has to be incorporated before you can even input the vehicles into the system. So looking at the first slide, that addresses growth. I do not know what the vehicle count was 34 years ago, but over the last 10 years it has increased 30%. And so we have the APWA guide up there, and they give a nice basic thumb rule for construction that the size of our fleet currently, we should have approximately about 30 bays to service the fleet of this city. So if I go to the next slide, you'll see that currently we have just 12 bays, and of those 12 bays, only 3 of them can accommodate any type of vehicle and any type of repair. The others are all restricted to small size, or there's a couple for heavy lift servicing. So there's a huge restriction. So with that restriction, with the growth, we're working outside. So that means every day technicians are working outside. Some days, as you see on the screen, every technician is working outside if it's large equipment and large vehicles. Problem is, that creates is a lack of efficiencies. We're dragging vehicles in and out. Techs have to go into their tools. They have to go to their boxes. They got to tear down benches. That's all inside. Puts our employees in bad elements. As you can imagine, for most of the year, they're working outside in the heat and the sun. But then as you see, there's another major concern, and that's the Arizona Department of Environmental Quality. They do not like it when we work outside our building because now all oils and fluids are no longer captured by an interceptor where they can be disposed of properly. We try as hard as we can, but it is inevitable that debris even absorbed is there and then it enters the storm drain system. So that's the growth has caused that limitation of the building. The second one, and you see many examples that I highlighted, was the condition of the facility. In many ways, it's reaching an expiration date. It's a 34-year-old steel structure, been numerous repairs and ongoing, but there are other concerns. 2 quick examples. One is we have 2 500-gallon underground tanks. EPA recommends those go away at 30 years. Those are not. They're still there. They're still in use. And then another really important one is the electric infrastructure of fleet. It is maxed out. We've been advised to keep our electric room door open because of the heat in the summer, and we tried to add just one very low draw charger for the robo vehicle, and we weren't allowed to put there because we are maxed out. So that becomes one of many issues. If we go to the next slide, you just see a few pictures of those things. The eaves are again rusting out in the building. You can see tires are not stored. That's an ADQ compliance issue. And then you see the conditions in the middle. That's how crowded it is within the shop. So that's kind of a safety concern. So the new facility allows us to bring everybody inside, the vehicles inside. It also helps the health and safety of them because we have room, no more crowding. We have no tool storage in this facility. We've pulled workbenches out to make room, and we don't have to keep moving stuff in and out. Health, we will be able to move welding into a separate facility, so no more of the fumes, no more of the lights that even our outside vendors who are supplying parts have to deal with as they come into our facility to provide that as well. And then third, very exciting, is technology. So as you can imagine, sustainability, environmental, we would be looking to incorporate electric vehicles in the future. That infrastructure has to be laid in. It's very costly, but if you do it as part of a construction project, not just for fleet, but for departments that are staged out of the MOC, that could all be put in at the same time, making a very cost-effective use at that particular time of a build. And just a final slide. Where it might possibly land, this is not fixed. We have design and engineering coming next year, so we'll burden the experts to come up with best suggestions, but likely in that corner of the lot. And just if you look at the microprint of the layout, that's not fixed, but that gives you an example of 2 recent ones. Surprise just opened a new fleet facility this year, as you know, and Yuma opened one last year. And these are comparable to the size that we would be looking at for us. So we thank you so much for your support of Public Works and for Fleet and for the city as well. Thank you. I don't know if I have time to ask questions, but I will answer any. Moving on. Kevin gave me the extra.
Well, I'm giving Rhonda the cut, but I will. Mayor, members of council, I know we're up against time. If you have any questions for John, we'll take those. Otherwise, I think we'll come back in a few weeks and finish this up for you.
Okay. Well, I'm sorry that we ran out of time. You guys have a lot of important things to tell us, and you do so many critical things for our city. And we need to make sure that we get you guys into a safe environment from now on as soon as we possibly can. So thanks again for everything that you do.
Thank you all.
Great. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Great, thank you, Mayor. I know in the interest of time, we'll call it quits.
All right. We are adjourned until our 6 p.m. meeting.
speaker's podium labeled Request to Speak. All speakers will have 3 minutes to complete their comments. A countdown clock is easily visible on the left side of the wall behind the City Council dais. Only items listed on the agenda may be addressed by the Council. Since items presented as part of a speaker's request have not been listed on the agenda, and due to the requirements of open meeting laws, the Council will be unable to respond to items presented as part of the speaker's request. However, please be aware that your comments will be noted. The speaker's name will be called to speak at the appropriate time, in the order that the forms were received. Thank you for your interest and participation in the Peoria City Council meeting.
Peoria City Council meeting will now come to order. Please rise for a moment of quiet reflection and the Pledge of Allegiance led by Youth Council Liaison Tuari.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The clerk will please call the roll.
Mayor Carlett,
Here.
Vice Mayor Edwards,
Here.
Councilmember Finn,
Here.
Councilmember Binswanger,
Here.
Councilmember Petena,
Here.
Councilmember Hunt,
Here.
Councilmember Dunn,
Here.
Youth Liaison Tawari. Here. And Youth Liaison Van Winkle.
Here.
Thank you. Welcome to the Peoria City Council meeting of March 16th, 2021. We continue measures to ensure the health and safety of our residents while assuring that the actions of your city council remain transparent. This plexiglass is one of the many changes that have been put in place amid the COVID-19 pandemic. Within the council chambers, masks are required and capacity is limited. The barriers you see between us allows us to conduct council business without a mask while controlling the possibility of transmission. For additional in-person and remote viewing and speaking measures, please consult the City of Peoria website. We will begin this evening with a presentation. This is the Peoria Chamber of Commerce presentation to Mayor and Council in recognition of First Responders Charity Event. And I would like to invite our President and CEO of the Peoria Chamber of Commerce, Scott Andrews, to the podium.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, City Council members, City Manager Jeff Tyne. Great to see you. It's a pleasure and privilege to speak to you this evening. First time, actually. This is a special occasion for us at the Peoria Chamber of Commerce. We have 2 short presentations for you this evening and several guests and team members in attendance with us to share some great news. This past February 1st, we held our 2nd annual Peoria First Responders Charity Golf Event out at Blackstone Country Club in the Mesquite District, located in beautiful North Peoria. The tournament was a huge success and a sellout for the 2nd year in a row. It exceeded expectations. Our vision for the event was to honor, celebrate, and both raise awareness and funds for the tireless efforts of our police, fire, and medical first responders delivering each day in Peoria. Our slogan for the event was Gratitude on the Green. Our sponsors, participants, and first responders alike enjoyed a day of golf, individual competitions, outstanding food and beverage supplied by our member businesses. Before we make our presentations, first let me introduce several guests to this presentation. First, I'd like to recognize Bonnie Lucas, President and CEO of Law Enforcement Specialists. Law Enforcement Specialists is located in Olive in the 101 Industrial Park. Bonnie was our first title sponsor. LES provides off-duty law enforcement officers when you need them the most, giving her clients peace of mind by maintaining a constant sense of safety and security. Bonnie has big brand experience in this space, holding security assignments at Target, Neiman Marcus, yes, I checked LinkedIn, and Walmart. Bonnie's a proud graduate of Grand Canyon University and a woman of distinction here in Peoria and West Valley. We are so fortunate to have her support of this event. Bonnie, thank you for this year. David Tracy, Senior Vice President of BNC Bank and a new C-suite member of the Peoria Chamber and our current Board of Directors Chair. Dave's leadership and friendship led me to the role as your Chamber CEO. Here with us tonight are Police Chief Art Miller and Fire Chief Bobby Reese. Both played an integral role providing resources, equipment, support for the event. We could not have achieved what we achieved without them. Thank you both. Our Peoria Chamber team, in my view, is best in brand. Hannah Murphy, founder, Stillwater Studios, newly manages all of our digital platforms as well as marketing for this event. I'm sure she's watching from her home tonight. Business development sponsorship is led by Carrie Kaufman, here with us tonight. Carrie comes to us after 8 years with the Glendale Chamber and brings a large following. Her compassion for our Peoria business community is evident in her admiration and patronage from her tireless support of the clients and members she interacts with. Through her efforts, we have grown membership over 15% and climbing during this pandemic. Last and certainly not least, Veronica Christiansen is a new Peoria resident. Welcome to Peoria, Veronica. After graduating from Brigham Young University in Idaho, Veronica serves as our event coordinator. She came in with a short lead time, new to the role, embraced the event, and led us with distinction to the success we are sharing this evening. Veronica, thank you. Before Veronica shares a few short highlights, we would like to present the first award to our mayor and city council. This beautiful award was created by CNL Awards. We all know CNL Awards, a great chamber member. In business, a successful and healthy culture is always defined by the leaders within that organization. Our city leadership is the best in class. And the culture of collaboration and support each of you bring to your district, city, and our businesses is appreciated more than can be expressed tonight. We say thank you for the support of this event, and that we receive support from every single city council member and our mayor this year, and we so appreciate that. Please accept this award with distinction, appreciation for your contributions to our successful event and support of our business community. Now I'd like to ask Veronica Christiansen to the podium to share a few short highlights of the event, and then we'll make our final presentation to Police and Fire. Veronica?
Just lower it a smidge. Well, being able to see the behind the scenes of everything that went into planning this event, it was truly a privilege to be able to work alongside both Chief Miller and Chief Reese. Seeing both their friendship and the union of our police and firefighters really came through in their personalities and their just joyful banter that I got to be a part of and see all that behind the scenes. But most importantly, I got to work alongside 40 sponsors that jumped on to the opportunity to be able to support us in this effort of putting together this First Responders Charity Golf Tournament for the second year in a row. Through this effort of all of our sponsors and their eagerness to not only want to donate their time and to be a sponsor, but many volunteered and donated raffle items, and it was because of them that this event was a huge success. So I am extremely grateful for all of our sponsors that helped, and for Chief Miller and Chief Reese's relationship with the Chamber and just the love and service that they bring to our community. It just shines through in every interaction that I had with them.
Thank you, Veronica. And I'd like to ask Chief Miller and Chief Reese and Bonnie Lucas to the podium, if we could just spread out a little bit, social distance, to receive our award from this year's event. Chief Reese, Chief Miller, thank you for your daily commitment to keeping our community safe. No words seem adequate to express our gratitude and admiration for our brave men and women who choose to run towards danger to selflessly protect our community. We honorably present a donation of $10,000 to support your efforts and ongoing commitment to serve Peoria each day with honor and distinction. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay. Mayor, this concludes our comments. Oh, messed up.
I'm local from Peoria, Illinois.
It is. Oh. Mr. Mr. Andrews, thank you. Thank you for that wonderful donation to our public safety professionals. Thank you for the beautiful award for the mayor and council. And thank you all for everything that you do for the Peoria Chamber of Commerce. I mean, growing business 15% in this environment in the middle of a pandemic is incredible. I can't wait to see what you can do when everybody is out and about and healthy again. So thank you so much for everything. We really appreciate you. Gratitude on the Green. I love that name. All right, we will now move on to the consent agenda. All items listed on the consent agenda are considered to be routine or have been previously reviewed by the City Council and will be enacted by one motion unless a council member requests an item to be removed and considered in the normal sequence on the agenda. I have received no speaker request forms or comments at this time. And so, council, are there any items to be removed from consent? Seeing none, do I have a motion?
I move we accept the consent agenda.
And a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. And the consent agenda passes unanimously. We will now move on to the regular agenda and unfinished business. Item 13R is specific area plan amendment, Grand Commons, Grand Avenue and 85th Avenue. And this is also tied to the next item, which is 14R rezone Grand Commons, Grand Avenue and 85th Avenue. And so we can hear these both at the same time and then vote on them individually. Mr. Tyne?
Great, thank you, Mayor. That is exactly right. Both of these agenda items relate to proposed land use actions that would help facilitate redevelopment on a vacant parcel here in the Old Town area. And so there's been a series of actions that's been done by both the City Council in the past as well as our Planning and Zoning Commission. So to provide an update on this development proposal, we have Chris Huckus, our Planning and Community Development Director.
Great, thank you, Mr. Tyne, and good evening, Mayor and Council. Items 13R and 14R, they pertain to the former Smitty site at 84th Avenue and Grand Avenue. This item was previously continued from the January 19th, 2021 City Council meeting. As you know, Scott White from the Real Estate Development Office has been working collaboratively with the landowner and the potential developer, SJ Acquisitions, on a redevelopment program for that former site. To date, this project has been envisioned as a multifamily site with some ancillary commercial uses along Grand Avenue. More recently, the proposed developer has asked for a pause to do some more due diligence on some of the site plan components. And in that exercise, they are looking at a potential change to the development program. So I think at this point, our recommendation is that rather than ask for another continuance, that we ask the council to remand both items back to the Planning and Zoning Commission indefinitely. And what that would do is just give the applicant time to identify the development program, work the development program through the city's review process, and then when we're ready to move forward, we'll renotice everything, bring it back to the city, to the Planning Commission, and back to City Council. So that's our recommendations for both items this evening.
Councilmember Hunt? Did you have a question?
I was going to make a motion.
Okay.
But does anybody have a?
Any comments?
Okay, I move that we remand this 13R and 14R Grand Commons back to the Planning and Zoning Commission until further.
I'll second.
Okay, can we do these both at once, like this? Okay. We have reluctant permission there. All right, so we have a motion to remand items 13R and 14R back to Planning and Zoning Commission. Is there a second? There was already a second. Okay, council, please vote. And that passes unanimously. Thank you. Right. Move on to new business now, which is 15R grants, Governor's Office of Highway Safety projects. Mr. Tyne.
Great, thank you, Mayor and Council. And this is two possible actions for the council to consider, and we'll have Chief Miller speak to the item. One would be to accept the grant that Chief Miller discusses, as well as the next would be to propose a budget amendment for the uses of that. So thank you, Chief, for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you very much for hearing me out here. I'm asking for your approval in accepting a Governor's Office of Highway Safety grant totaling $188,878.59. This is we're going to be buying some equipment that is sorely needed. One of the particular things we're buying that we'd like to buy is a drone. It has the latest technology and is used for reconstruction at traffic accidents, specifically serious injury or fatal accidents. What this will do is the drone, when it's flown over with an operator, it triangulates measurements, and it cuts down on overtime tremendously, and it adds to the accuracy of our reports. So what would take 5 or 6 officers, maybe 7 or 8 hours to do, this drone and technology that's available can be done literally in minutes. And it's something that we actually had in our budget for last year, and it was on the verge of being approved, but then COVID came upon us, and we had to retool ourselves as far as how we were going to ask for money or get money. We have a great relationship with the governor's office, and I like to think that Peoria is one of their favorite cities to work with. I know that the director there, he gives us a lot of credit on being responsive in terms of how we enforce the laws, how we go out and meet the needs of our community to keep it safe. Another vehicle that we want to buy in this is what we call an unmarked vehicle. It is going to be used for aggressive drivers. As you know, a lot of the racing people that are going around wreaking havoc regionally. This is going to help combat some of that. We also use that vehicle for public events. We show it at high schools and whatnot, and it looks very similar to an average car on the street, except for when we turn on the lights and siren and things like that. It changes its composition. Some other equipment that we want to buy is intoxilizer, which are used to measure a person's blood alcohol content if they get detained for driving under the influence. So this is something, again, I think we can have really good use for in our department. I think it'll help in several different areas, including budgetary, then fatigue on officers, and more accuracy on reports. So with that, I'm asking for your approval.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Council, any questions or comments? Councilmember Hunt?
Well, congratulations on this. This is an amazing number of items that you're going to be able to purchase with this. Just out of curiosity, what does a drone cost?
The drone itself costs almost $100,000.
So
and
that's
it's not just the drone, it's the technology that comes with it, the hardware and software that's used on it.
So that's the bulk of it.
That is the bulk of it.
Does it take special training for one or more of your officers to use that?
It will take special training, which will be part of the package when we buy it.
Oh, well, just again, congratulations. I mean, I think you guys are the best there is, but I don't know exactly what you had to do to get this grant, but I'm sure it was well-deserved. So congratulations on the items that you're buying with it.
Thank you very much.
Well, council, is there a motion to approve a grant of $188,000?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Council, please vote. And that passes unanimously.
Good. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Chief. Next is item 16R, contract approval, MGC Contractors, Inc., Beardsley Water Reclamation Facility expansion. Mr. Tyne?
Great, thank you, Mayor and Council. And one of the more important projects in our capital improvement program this year is the expansion of capacity at the Beardsley Water Reclamation Plant. And so there's a series of steps that we go through. One of the important steps would be a contract award here for design. And so to discuss this further is Kate Powers, our Water Services Director. Thank you, Mr. Powers.
Thank you, Mr. Tyne. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Item 16R includes asking for your approval to award a contract to MGC Contractors for design services and early procurement and construction services for the Beardsley Water Reclamation Facility expansion project. There's a design build, this is a design build project with multiple phases of award, and the first phase was awarded with approval from council this past September. So if some of this looks familiar or similar, it's because you saw some of it in September. You might recall from that earlier meeting that the intent of the project is to expand the Beardsley wastewater treatment plant capacity from 4 million gallons a day to 6 million gallons a day, which will allow the community to continue to grow in the Beardsley service zone area, as shown on the map on the map on the right-hand side of the slide. Community growth has already occurred such that the expansion of the plan is required per the Maricopa County Environmental Services Department, and is something we all plan for by putting over $29 million into our capital improvement program. The chart shows the various completed and proposed stages of the contracting effort with MGC and their team. The original contract work is complete, and now we are here for the approval of amendment number 1. One thing I would like you to note is that in our previous presentation, we had estimated that amendment number 1 that we're undertaking tonight to the contract would be approximately $4 million for the project detailed design, including a portion of the design for the pump station required for the Purple Pipe reclaimed water system that we're currently designing under a different project. It all kind of comes together. As you can see in the chart, it's now listed as $7.7 million. Since approval of the original contract, the preliminary design report has revealed that it's advantageous to perform early procurement construction services for some of the work. We don't anticipate overall project costs will change, and this is much more about how we're scheduling the work and is not about the change in the amount of work we're doing or the cost we're paying for that work. It's just the scheduling. So let's talk about some of the early procurement items that we're moving up. The significant ones are listed on the side before you. Just taking a quick look at the pictures, the far left picture shows our existing UV detection system, or at least the part of it that you can see above ground. It disinfects the water after it leaves our treatment train to make it safe to put on lawns and yards and parks and things like that. The far left, let's see, the bottom middle picture shows an existing sand filtration bay, and we're going to remove the internals of that and replace them with some specialized cloth media filters, which are much more efficient, and they're actually shown on the lower right-hand project. You can kind of see the white tubes, columnar-looking things, and that's what we're going to install into our existing basin. And just for kicks and giggles, we threw in a picture of the filter bar screen at the headworks of the plant. It's the picture on the upper right-hand side, and it's a tall, thin, floor-to-column, mechanical-looking device, and you're only looking at about half of it. Again, the rest of it sticks way down into the ground, and it filters out large chunks and debris that comes to our wastewater stream and into the plant before we send it to the plant for detailed refinement and pumping. Are there any questions at this point?
Any questions on that? No.
As mentioned previously, the approved pre-design effort is complete. The design team continues to push through the restrictions placed on us all by the COVID pandemic, and you can see the design team working away and participating in a meeting in the upper right, and they are quite a smiley bunch. We must have asked them for smiles, apparently. The detailed design work will commence as soon as this contract amendment is approved, and all construction will be completed in fiscal year 2024. This is obviously one of those projects that many, not me, but many people might think is less exciting than, say, rebuilding the Country Meadows Park or perhaps Paloma Park or something like that. Regardless, it's absolutely vital to providing services to our existing and growing population. And for these reasons, staff recommendation is that you approve award of a design-build contract to MGC Contractors for Phase 1B, design services and early procurement and early construction services in the amount of $762,439.29. Mayor and Council, I'll be happy to answer any additional questions you might have.
Council? I have one question, Kate. Have you had any public meetings with the neighbors in the vicinity there so that they know what's going to be going on?
We haven't had any yet. We haven't undertaken this construction. We don't have an exact schedule for the work that might impact them. Mm-hmm. Part of the reason for that is that this entire project is going to take place behind the walls of the facility. Mm-hmm. So it's really going to almost be invisible to them. They'll probably see cranes up in the air and things like that periodically, or heavy equipment being drawn in. And so we just haven't approached it like that yet. When we have a better schedule and we can probably better inform them about what's going to happen when, then we'll see if, kind of gauge how necessary that is, I guess I should say.
Although they might not be directly impacted, Beardsley is definitely their neighbor, and so I'm sure that they will be happy to be included in some of the conversation about what is happening and what they can expect as far as traffic or any kind of impacts that would happen to them.
Sure. We'll make a point of doing that. Yeah, we did meet with the HOA that was adjacent, but we talked to them about this a little bit, but it was more about the reclaimed water project, so it's probably good we check in with them again.
All right, thank you. Anyone? All right, do I have a motion then on item 16R? All right, we have a motion and a second. Council, please vote. And it passes unanimously. Thank you. All right, next item on the agenda is call to the public for non-agenda items. If you wish to address the City Council, please complete a speaker request form, and we have received no speaker request forms. All right, we will now move on to reports from the City Manager. Mr. Tyne.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council, for two items that I wanted to speak to. First off, I am going to ask Chief Bobby Reese to come down and discuss an important historical milestone here for the city. In fact, I think it's so important for us to reflect back on all that we have seen and experienced here in this community and reflect on the services that we provide, some of these which precede our own town and corporation. And to that end, Chief Reese will give us a little bit of that historical perspective.
Mayor, Council, I'm very excited to be in front of you today for this momentous celebration and date of 100 years. And so I'm going to cover the 100 years 1 year at a time. So just kidding. Have a video that lasts about 4 minutes and I think tells the whole story, answer most of your questions, but I'll answer any questions after the video for you.
Great.
In 1917, a fire tore through multiple occupancies in the small rural farming community of Peoria, Arizona. Firefighters from Phoenix and Glendale eventually arrived, but virtually the entire business district was left in ruins. In 1920, Peoria business leaders gathered to discuss how to prevent such destruction from happening again. They voted to organize the Peoria Fire Protection District, and on March 18, 1921, the Maricopa County Board of Supervisors approved the formation of the Peoria Volunteer Fire Department with 21 firefighters, including the first fire chief, Frank W. Aiken, and borrowed apparatus. The department bought its first pumper in 1922, which could pump 55 gallons a minute, and the department used that engine until 1930, when funds were raised to purchase the 1929 Chevrolet pumper that the department still owns today. During the following decades, the department and its volunteer firefighters responded to the occasional emergency, but also became an integral part of community life. The department raised funds for the local schools, for the Boy Scouts, and any number of citizens who were in need. In 1954, Peoria incorporated, becoming the City of Peoria, and assumed responsibility for the volunteer fire department. In 1969, Gene Mason was named Department Chief and President of the Arizona State Fire Chiefs Association. Chief Mason would hold his post until he was killed in the line of duty on April 24, 1977, becoming the first Peoria firefighter to die in service of the community. In 1979, the now City of Peoria Fire Department hired its first full-time firefighter, Mike Fusco. The following year, firefighter Fusco was promoted to fire chief and hired Peoria's second full-time firefighter, Dave Stutzman. By 1982, the department had 3 shifts with firefighters on duty 24 hours a day. Today, the Peoria Fire Medical Department employs nearly 200 firefighters as well as civilian support staff, and has been led since 2012 by Fire Chief Bobby Reese. The department is an all-hazards department and boasts a technical rescue team, a hazardous materials team, a team of rescue swimmers and fireboat, a wildland team, provides advanced life support through its paramedics, and has its own ambulance service. The department covers over 179 square miles out of 8 stations, from Yavapai County and Lake Pleasant in the north, all the way south to the Old Town Business District it was originally created to protect. The members of the department continue the legacy of helping those in need through the Peoria Firefighters Charities, formed after the tragic death of Peoria firefighter Johnny Valentine. The Peoria Fire Medical Department remains committed to protecting and caring for our neighbors, our guests, and each other, while maintaining the community's trust and respect through superior life safety services. For 100 years, we have served with strength, honor, and compassion, and will continue to do so in the years to come.
Any questions?
Gosh, what a great video.
Thank you.
Happy anniversary.
Thank you very much.
Council, do you have any questions or comments? Well, I just have to say how impressive the Peoria Fire Medical Department is. And in 100 years, you have never stopped moving forward, gaining more expertise, and now, you know, such a beacon of light in the entire valley. We are very, very proud of you.
Thank you very much, Mayor and Council.
Congratulations.
Thank you, Chief. I appreciate that. And in the spirit of the 100 years of Peoria Fire and Medical, so much of that has shown itself in the last year with overall how the city has approached another issue, and that was, of course, the recent pandemic. With Peoria Cares, we've offered direct and immediate relief to our residents, worked with the businesses to support them in this unique time of need for them, and also to solidify our financial standing through an era of economic uncertainty. So with that in mind, we have reached out to you at specific times to talk about pivotal events, including some additional funding we had received through the federal government and the state for our initial CARES relief. With that, we have an update from our Intergovernmental Affairs Director, Thomas Atkins, to speak to recent federal activity.
Thank you, Mr. Tyne, Mayor and Council. It's good to be here before you in person. It's a long time since I've seen that. As Mr. Tyne said, I'm here to give a very brief overview and highlight of the American Rescue Plan Act. This is the most recent COVID relief that was passed by Congress and signed by President Biden last week. This is a truly massive plan and has some far-reaching impacts for time to come. As you are aware, with the CARES Act and all the other pandemic relief that Congress has passed, there's been a tremendous amount of resources. And to provide a little bit of context, with the $1.9 trillion that this act has enabled and is getting out to the nation, it's about $6 trillion now that the federal government has spent on COVID-19 relief. That amounts to about 28% of our gross domestic product. So it's difficult to put into words the quantity of resources that have been put into responding to the pandemic. So I'm going to give just a really high-level overview. There's much more in the American Rescue Plan that we're able to talk about tonight, and in the interest of time, we'll try to be brief here. But I just can't emphasize how massive this legislation is and how far-reaching its impact will be within our community and beyond. So to put this into perspective, we talked about the size with the $6 trillion, but when it comes to the American Rescue Plan Act, the most noteworthy item that's been discussed is the $1,400 direct payments to taxpayers. That also includes $1,400 per child or dependent. Those individuals that qualify for that have an adjusted gross income of $75,000, or if they're joint filed together, $150,000. Those payments will be going, as I understand it, later this week. In addition to that direct assistance, something that's really noteworthy here is this $219 billion in family assistance. This is going to take the form of the increase in the child tax credit. This is something that I think has been overlooked, but is really going to have a major impact to Peoria families. And that the tax credit now is increased to $3,000 per child or dependent, or if the child's 6 or under, it's actually $3,600. But most noteworthy is this tax credit now is fully refundable. So I think individuals are really going to maybe be surprised at when they file their taxes and see what this return gets them. In addition, you're going to see the federal unemployment for the pandemic insurance is extended through early September. The amount now is $300 per week. Of also note is for the federal government has made exempt from taxation up to $10,200 for individuals or $20,400 for families. So getting kind of to the meat of this, we want to talk about the piece that's second in size only to that direct assistance to individuals, and that is the coronavirus state and local fiscal recovery funds. These are dollars that are going out directly to the states and territories, the tribes, the local governments, all across the country in the amount of $130.2 billion. Again, a massive amount of money. Arizona cities and towns are going to see $2.6 billion of that. For the state, this is just another contextual number I want to put out there. The state overall is going to be receiving over $12 billion in federal assistance. To put that into perspective, the state's annual budget that they pass at the legislature and signed by the governor amounts to roughly that same size. So the state is getting on its level basically a full budget in federal relief. Now that's broken up into certain pools of money that can be used for different things. The one with this sort of most discretion is about $4.8 billion that the governor's office will have control over. There's some stipulations on how that can be used, but essentially it's to be used for COVID-19 response. It can't be used to backfill tax cuts or for pensions. But other than that, if there's a nexus and also some infrastructure, then they can use it for those funds. So to the question that we really care about here tonight, what does this mean for Peoria? Well, for starters, the city of Peoria is going to receive direct financial assistance from the federal government to the tune of about $20.2 million. Half of this will come within the next 60 days, and that will, we'll see that in the next 60 days. So the next amount will come out 12 months after the first installment. There are some limitations on how this funding can be used. I'll talk about that here briefly. But in a high level, it's, again, meant for COVID-19 relief. But specifically, it's to respond to COVID-19 or to its negative economic impacts, meaning we can use this funds to assist, like we did with the CARES Act funding. We can assist our businesses, our residents, nonprofits, and impacted industries such as the hospitality tourism industry. Funds can also be used to respond to essential workers that are performing essential work for the city that we need to pay premium pay for or something like that, or for the provision of government services that were negatively impacted by the pandemic. Of also note that was called out in the legislation is that we can use these funds for needed investments in infrastructure that is either water infrastructure, sewer, or broadband infrastructure. So it'll be, as we kind of talk about our next steps, that's a key piece that we want to have there. The main prohibition is that we can't use the funding to pay for pensions, and that we have to use all of the funds by the end of 2024. So, as you'll recall with the CARES Act, Peoria staff had a very timely and customized response to getting those funds out to the community where it was most needed. You might recall some of the Herculean efforts that we just sort of maybe didn't take for granted, but have kind of gotten lost in the blur. But I just want to mention some of those things, like with Deputy City Manager Katie Gregory and her team that made thousands and thousands of calls to Peoria businesses to identify needs, connect them with resources like the Paycheck Protection Program and the emergency loan program that was out there. We had our Neighborhood Services Department that was contacting our nonprofits to figure out what the needs of our residents were. This slide sort of highlights how some of those CARES Act funds were used to provide assistance. We bought Chromebooks and hotspots for underserved communities that needed to connect to the internet. We did all of that, and in so doing, developed a community network that we will be able to use again as we develop a proposal for spending the American Rescue Plan Act. that those connections that our staff has made are still in existence, and we think we can have pretty quick turnaround in updating the sort of needs assessment within our community. For example, we've seen, with the CARES Act, which was passed about a year ago, industries like the restaurants trying to shift entirely how they provide those services, going from dine-in to curbside pickup or extending their patios, et cetera. Now we're going to probably take another look to see what the needs are now and how we can best address those. We anticipate, and City Manager Tyne has talked about this at length, we think we can have a pretty quick response in developing a proposal that we can bring back to you for your guidance and feedback that will address the emergent community needs that we have. Of course, your role, Mayor and Council, is going to be integral in that, given the relationships that you have, so you can expect some contact from staff as we try to, again, assess those needs. But this is something that Peoria really does well, which is to identify the needs of the community and in a quickly, timely fashion, address those needs. And it's something that I'm proud to be a part of, and I think that we're going to have some really solid proposals for you in the coming weeks. So just to close up, I just want to mention for anybody that may be watching or anybody that wants additional information, a good resource that I go to is the budget analyst at the Joint Legislative Budget Committee. That is a nonpartisan, nonpartial group down at the legislature that has analyzed this legislation and has a specific Arizona summary put together. There's a lot of other guides online, but this is a good starting point. And also I'm available if anybody has any questions that they want research on. So with that, Mayor, Council, that concludes my presentation, and I stand for any questions.
Thomas, thank you for this update. I mean, it's really complicated, and it's been just a moving target for such a long time. It's nice to finally see it in black and white and know exactly what is happening and when it is happening, when it is coming. So appreciate that. Council, do you have any questions? No? Okay, well, this is where anyone can get more information on this. Your $1,400 check is in the mail. Yep. Thanks very much.
Great, thank you, Mayor. That is all the presentations that I have. I appreciate that, and as Mr. Atkins had mentioned, we will be reaching out to all of you to get your feedback on how you see the community best needing this at this moment in time. So thank you.
Good. Thank you. All right, and now we will move on to reports from our Youth Council liaisons. We will start with Youth Council Liaison Tuwari tonight. Did I surprise you? Sorry.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So I have one update. Like we've mentioned before, Dom and I came up with a project to increase board involvement and recruitment. And our original plan was to go into schools and give presentations, but of course, due to COVID-19, that hasn't been able to come into fruition. But we came up with an alternative to that, so we decided to film a video of different board members talking about their experiences on the board and why they think that the board is important for youth in Peoria. So this past Monday, we had a few board members from the Youth Advisory Board come down at different time slots to be COVID safe to film small segments, and we put together a very short informative video that we're going to be sending out to all schools in Peoria so that we can gain more traction for the Youth Advisory Board. And just a reminder for anybody that may be watching, we are currently recruiting for the Youth Advisory Board this year. You can go onto the City of Peoria website and get more information about the Youth Advisory Board and how to apply. So that's all I have for right now. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And is Mr. Van Winkle on the line? Sir, did you have any comments for this evening?
Thank you. I do, Mayor. Can you hear me clearly?
Very well.
All right. Thank you, Mayor and Council. So recently, yesterday, March 15th, we had our college readiness webinar hosted by our Youth Advisory Board alumni. It was open to the public, and we had 3 alumni members present. There were several questions asked and discussed, ranging from applying to colleges to social life to balancing schedules. The webinar lasted the entire scheduled hour, and we had a decent amount of Youth Advisory Board members present, and it went very successfully. And so I just wanted to follow up and report on that because I know I had advertised that previously, and it was a great event that was very helpful.
Good, thank you, and thanks for your efforts to be with us tonight, even though you're having a little bit of difficulty. We appreciate that. And there being no further business, we are adjourned.